Hi, Griffin. Thank you so much for joining me tonight. I absolutely loved your narrative. It was so interesting to learn about these troll creatures and just how different their language is and how they look and act in your narrative than what I imagined a troll would be. So that is great. Um, I got so for your goals, you had said in your student survey that you wanted to um, saying, saying what you wanted to in a better way, so that the reader can understand it better. And I think that you did a great job with that. So I think we need to reword your goals to maybe um, you want to convey the whole story better because you did great with everything in the story, except for the last part of it was cut super short. But we will talk about that in a couple of minutes. So I guess what you did well is there's is a great description of Aradon. I can really picture what he's looking like as he's walking down the street, saying that he has a small purple streak in his hair. It's combed back, so it's not touching his scarf. I can just picture a very sophisticated troll walking down the street, which is great. I was wondering though if there is a way that you could describe what a lusus is, just because as a reader, I'm not familiar with what you're talking about. Like I can infer that Alternia is like the state or planet where these trolls are living, but I have no idea what a lusus is. Is it a type of troll? Is it something else? So maybe there's a way where you can that consider fitting that into the story just to help your reader understand what they are reading about. And then, what else I was wondering about is the one fatal thing. So it looks like Aradon didn't say good morning to one of his roommates, and you say that that's a fatal thing, but why? What happens to Aradon if he doesn't say good morning to his roommate? As a reader, I'm really wondering this, and it doesn't tell me anywhere in the remainder of the narrative what why this is so fatal. So maybe consider adding to this section of your story so that the reader can better understand why not saying good morning is fatal. Um, and moving on, I really enjoyed how you did your dialogue here in the brackets instead of the quotation marks. But I was wondering why you chose to do it that way. Is it internal thoughts that weren't actually being said, or is that how dialogue is when it's in fan fiction? Um, or did, or if not, the way that we normally do dialogue is this is great. So you want to start it as a new paragraph, which you did. So you have your indent and then another space down here before you start your new paragraph where it says, yes, this was the life. What you could do instead of your brackets is you could do quotation marks where each bracket is to show that it's actually dialogue, and then that way there's no question. Like I see you did it down here where you go, who could have done this? So that's great. So I'm just wondering what your thoughts as the writer were to doing the above dialogue in the brackets. But you definitely have a great use of dialogue between the characters. I can understand what they're saying and when, and it helps me to understand Eridan's thought process about the whole bird, saying that he needs a pure heart, and Eridan has a pure heart. But so I guess as a reader, I'm left wondering why does this bird need a pure heart? Is this something this particular bird always does? Is go around looking for trolls that have pure hearts? Is he sick and needs a pure heart to get better? Or does Eridan hold some sort of power that getting his heart will benefit this bird in some way in relation to having more power? Is that you state that, but there's no reason why, and then you just keep moving on to the story. So something that I would like you to do is go and revisit Kelsey's lesson number 2. She has a fantastic video on plotline, and she has a diagram on plotline that I'm actually going to show you some things. So we start out with the beginning of our story, the exposition, the rising action, which as the reader, I identified the rising action to be him not saying good morning to his roommate, and then also the bird saying that he wanted his heart. And then I understand the climax to be where he goes to kick the bird, and instead he misses the bird because the bird somehow shrinks, and then Eridan just wakes up in a panic. That is what I understand the climax to be. And then your falling action to me would be where you go on to say that he's seeing all these burning houses, and then suddenly he is struck with a blast of energy, and he's knocked completely out cold. And then your story ends. So as a reader, I'm left wondering, well, now what? What happens next? And I noticed you said to possibly be continued. So if we look at the plot line, you have your action of Eridan getting knocked out by some force. So then, as a reader, I'm wondering, what is the resolution to this? Does he end up does he end up dying and the bird gets his pure heart like it wanted? Does he wake up and work things out with the bird and they just go about their life? Like, what happens after Eridan is knocked out that resolves the problem of the bird wanting his heart. So overall, I think this is a fantastic draft to your narrative. I would definitely like you to go back and determine if all of your details are actually important. So is the detail he realized one fatal thing, is that crucial to the reader understanding the story, or would it be okay if you took that out? And then I was wondering the same thing down where you say Eridan thought in his natural accent as he stared horrified at the sight before him. So to me as a reader, there is no mention above of Eridan having an accent. So when it says in his natural accent, it kind of makes me wonder. So if how Eridan talks is an important detail to telling the story, then maybe consider where you could add it in prior to this section of your story. And if it's not important, maybe consider rewording the sentence and taking out in his natural accent. So it could be something along the lines of Eridan thought as he stared horrified at the sight before him. And then maybe play around with that to see if you can add something else in where it says natural accent, or if you just want to take it out, or if you decide it's a critical detail, then definitely consider adding it in earlier so that the reader isn't as confused. But other than that, I think that your use of detail is great. If anything, I think your goal should be to work on resolving the stories that you're telling, because your stories, like I said, are great. It follows the plot line right up until the point of the resolution. Your details are great. Your dialogue is great. There's not too much dialogue and there's not too little dialogue, and it's definitely effective. You use the dialogue for multiple characters, not just Eridan. You have dialogue for the bird. You have dialogue for Suluk's captor who lives with Eridan. So the detail is definitely great in this narrative. So I would like you to spend some time, if you have it, just going back and revising this, because I would love to see what you can do with it to make it even better than it already is.